Welcome to Hustle and Healing, the Real Talk podcast on pregnancy, postpartum, and motherhood. I'm your host, Jessica Lauser, here for the raw stories, honest laughs, and everything in between. Let's dive in.
I couldn't when I was in the Navy because I couldn't have my phone with me, so it was hard, and I wasn't super good with like the Google calendar, and you couldn't get on like your Apple calendar at work either to do anything. So it was like I had calendar at work that was like all work stuff, and then I had to write that stuff down, and then I would take it home, and so then I would just transcribe whatever I needed to on my calendar to take with me, like if there was a kid's something or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like when I started getting ready to like transition out, I was like, I need to start figuring all this stuff out, and then managing his schedule too. I was like, you need to put all your shit on Google Calendar. I was like, so I can see it.
Yeah.
Because like I'm trying to like schedule things, and I'm like, and I don't know. It's like I don't care where you're going. I just need to know like if you're going to be here or not. And so he's really good about doing that. And then we just share our calendars so that I can see and he can see.
Yeah, that's what we do.
And
We do share.
everything goes on that. And then same thing with the nanny. Like I just share events with her, like her pickup days, or they're all sent to her, and then I change them if we need to. And
That's perfect.
now it's a little bit more fluid.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
we'll jump in. So this week on Hustle and Healing, we have Jess Fernandez. So recently retired naval officer.
Yes.
Wife to your best friend, Jason Fernandez. And then mom to two, Logan and Chappie, 11 and 6.
Yep.
11 years old.
I know, it's kind of weird.
To like actually like go back and process. You also co-owner of CrossFit Rife, run investment property, and you're about to dive back into school for your MBA.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm actually really excited.
And we are recording it, so now it's like more official.
Oh, it's official. Like
have you signed up?
Yeah, I've already applied. Like, got accepted.
Yay.
Sent my deposit in.
Okay, where are you going?
University of Texas, Austin.
What? All online?
Nope, it's in person. All in person. So their executive program, they do a once a month.
Okay.
And so it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They do have a couple like the first week is their orientation immersion. So it's a week long. I think it's like Tuesday to Friday for 4 days or whatever, or Tuesday to Saturday. And then once a month for the next 2 years. And then there's a couple, like there's a 3-day immersion up in New York in October. And then I think it's next May is like DC. And then they do another one with like a bunch of the big Texas companies in Austin. So I'll just fly down on Wednesday and then fly back on Sunday.
All right.
Stay down there. Yeah.
That's exciting.
It'll be good because like I'm a Gen Xer, so I need to like see things, and also like the ADD. I was like, at first I thought online would be good just because I could have more flexibility, but if you open up my computer, I've got like 100 tabs open, and so I would just be like, oh, okay, I'm not really interested in this, and then I'm going to start looking at something else. Whereas if I'm in class, like it's a little obvious if I'm not paying attention.
Yeah. So you only have to go down there once a month. Yeah. That's not bad.
No.
I mean,
that's what I was like. And at first, and that was the same thing. At first, I was like, I don't know if I could fly that much. And I was like, Jason leaves every weekend, almost every weekend. Now it's not as much, but I was like, he used to leave like every weekend. It's like, I can do it once a month.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
You also were deployed for was it?
It was over a year. Yeah. My last deployment was like 14 months.
Yeah.
With like training on the front and back end. Yeah.
So this will be a breeze in the park.
And I love Austin. Like we actually went down there for an anniversary trip, and then we went back. Kiki and Steph and I went back last October after I retired. They do like a big music festival, like 2 weekends in a row, and it's like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just like from I think 10 to 9 or 10, like people playing all day.
A good girls trip, mom's trip.
It was good. It was a lot of fun. Actually wore these shoes and then like burned the soles of my feet off.
Dancing?
No, it was just so hot. But it was like you're walking everywhere. So like walk from the hotel down there, and then you're just walking from like, you have your list and you're just like, okay, we want to go see them. We want to see them. We want to see them. It was just like you're walking back and forth, and it's like this huge carnival area, like festival type. I think there was like 6 stages.
That sounds fun.
So it was a lot of fun, but it was just like so hot. And I was just like, these were the wrong shoes to wear.
That's all right. What are they, like Converse?
They're Golden Goose.
Cool. There's look, they're still intact.
Oh yeah, they're meant to look roughed up, but they're definitely not supposed to be like wear them for
All the walking you
long
did.
walks.
That's nice that you got away
Yeah.
for a nice like. I feel like that is hard. Is getting all of. I'm in the stage where if I'm not pregnant, someone else is pregnant, and then
Yeah.
someone else, and I'm like, can we have one summer where none of us are pregnant, or like in the newborn trenches? Because it's like those first couple months. Because as soon as I feel like we've all come together and we're saying like no more kids, someone's like, I think I have baby fever. I'm like, shit, see you next summer, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Just gotta pull it together and bring whoever can and just do it. I don't know, it's kind of.
I know it's like this is the trip. Whoever can make it can make it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna pull the trigger.
Yeah.
I just gotta do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just be like, hey, don't feel bad, like if you have to miss it, because I think there is a lot of like that guilt of like, oh, I can't, like I want to go but can't go, and you're just like, oh, I can't do it now, and just reframe it like, I'll be able to do it next time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, Jess, I feel like you've lived a whole life. You've had
I'm a little older than most.
Military. I mean, between military, motherhood, kind of
forget that sometimes.
Starting the business stuff.
Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, oh, you're 15 years younger than me. I'm sorry.
But it's great.
I always like that too.
You have the wisdom, and you've
Yeah,
lived through a
getting
lot. And
getting there. Yeah.
like, if we can go back a little bit or a lot of it with Logan and kind of your firstborn, bring us back to kind of your birthing story with her.
Yeah. So I've talked about it. I've talked to a lot of therapists about this because like I had to, like you just have to, going through something like that. I'd say very fortunate that I waited, and we had waited to have kids. I don't think I could have, in my mindset back then, was mature enough and or understood how to handle that. And even like I didn't handle it the greatest.
How old were you?
So I was 33 when I actually it was 32 when I got pregnant and 33 when I had her, because she tried to come on my birthday. I was like, nope. She held it off for 5 more days. And I mean, we had been married for 3 years before that, I think. Two-ish years before that. But we've known each other for a really long time, since after high school, or right after high school. And so we were just kind of like, oh yeah, it's like time to get like been married now. Like we're at a good spot. I was at a shore duty command, so I was like, this is a good time to like because trying to plan it in the Navy too is like really hard. Like some people just say, oh, screw it. Like, can I swear? I was like,
yep, we can swear.
Fuck it. That's usually, how some women are. And then I was just like, oh, I'm trying to, plan it out a little bit so I'm not screwing everybody over. And I got pregnant pretty quickly, like maybe 1 or 2 months of trying, and got pregnant, and it was like, sweet, like, all right, this is going to go great. Like, want it to be all natural. Had a doula, thank God. And let's see, my sister was pregnant at the same time. She ended up giving birth a month early because she had some complications with like not enough fluid in the sac. And so they were like, yeah, we don't know about this. her husband was deployed, so my mom and I actually flew out to California to be with her because they wouldn't let him come home.
Mm.
And so she ended up having hers early. I ended up had scheduled my uh like anatomy ultrasound for like 18 weeks instead of 20 weeks because I was supposed to be out with her during that week.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she gave birth 3 weeks early, I was like, oh shit, what do I do? And they were like, oh, just leave it. It'll be okay. And I was like, okay. They're like, it'll still, like you're in a window. It's fine. So mid-November was 18 weeks. I went in for that. And of course, they were like, oh, everything looks good, blah, blah, blah. Hold on a second. And then they leave and they were like, okay, this is weird. We were sitting there for like 20 minutes, felt like forever. And they were like, hey, like the doctor's going to come in and talk to you guys. And we're like, what the hell's going on? And they're like, no, like they'll come in and they'll talk to you. And I was like, okay.
I feel like it'd be nice just to say, hey, we saw some things, right? We'll be
Right. Terrible bedside manner. It was even worse when the doctor walked in and they started talking about stuff. And I kind of just was like, what? And then Jason was like, stopped and was like, is the baby okay? And they're like, oh, yeah. The baby's fine. And we're like, God, okay. So like you just have a really like kind of abnormally short cervix. But since you haven't had any miscarriages and this is like your first pregnancy, we really don't know if you're just like biologically this way or not. Or if it's something going on. And we're just like, okay, so like what does this mean? They're like, yeah, like, bed rest is we've determined bad for most mothers and babies. So we'll say like modified bed rest, like don't go up for long walks, like you're gonna be on just modified, like you can get up, shower, go to the bathroom.
that's nice. You could shower.
Like standing for like that stuff, but like just try to like lay down for most of the time you can,
And
or
this is
like
at
sit.
18
So it's
weeks?
18 weeks, yeah.
Oh,
And
geez.
I was like, all right. They're like, come back in 2 weeks and like we'll check again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I guess. So at that point, like I went on modified bed rest at home and just like go to the gym and I'd like sit at the gym. And like I had been working out up until that point too. So I was like, okay. Um, Went back at 20 weeks and they were like, yeah, it's a little shorter. Um, but nothing that we're like super concerned with yet. So we're like, okay. They're like, just come back in 2 weeks. And we're like, hey, like, I'm supposed to be traveling for Christmas to go down to Louisiana to see his parents. Like, is that still okay? Or should we cancel that? Like,
Mm.
um, they're like, well, we can't really tell you. And I was like, just like, I understand. Like, I just want your recommendation of like, we can do whatever we want, but what's your recommendation? And
Right.
they were just like, well, I'd figure out like where the closest like NICU is if you do like decide to go. We're like, okay.
How many weeks is this now?
So that was 20 weeks. I was at my like 20 week.
Oh, okay.
So this was like beginning of December now.
Mm-hmm.
Her due date was April 14th or 15th. Um, so 20 weeks, they're like, all right, make another appointment in 2 weeks. We're like, okay, cool. So I went in 2 weeks. They were like, it's a little shorter, but like you should be okay. And I was like, all right, well, they're like, why don't we sandwich the like if you're gonna go down, like let's sandwich doing your appointments, like one right before and then we'll do like one right after you come back. We're like, okay, fine. So I had to like for some reason I forget. I think it was because of that. So I went in like a Friday, totally fine. Went back on Monday and they were like, oh, you're dilated 3 centimeters in your bags coming out. And I was like, excuse me, I don't know what that means. And they were like, you're like dilated, like having preterm labor. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, we need to either like try to stitch you back up. And I was like, okay. They were like, so we'll let you go home, but you need to come back tomorrow so that we can do the procedure. And I was like, so should I cancel my flights? Like, what does this mean? And they were like, oh, well, it could be okay, but like, it's just like you're dilated already. And I was like, okay. And then they also noticed some sludge in the amniotic fluid, which is like debris-ish. Like it could be like an infection type
Mm-hmm.
like thing, and they're like, but we can't really tell what that is. And so we were like, okay. They're like, we can do an amniocentesis and see if it is like an infection, and that is what like your body is trying to terminate the pregnancy because something's wrong. Um, but if we do the cerclage, which is like stitching the cervix back up, and something does happen, and like we won't know if it's because of like there was an infection, or if there was something like issue with the cerclage, or if there was an infection with the surgery and the cerclage. And I was like, I don't know. They're like, but if it comes back positive that there is an infection, we cannot do the cerclage. And then it'll just be like whatever happens to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So was
Now, are
that
you
like
processing this by yourself, or is Jason with
Jason was
you?
there? Yeah, Jason was there.
I feel like to have like a second ear while you're getting all
And we
the.
were just like, okay, like what? So going back to like, I wanted to do this all natural. I was like, this is turning out to not be natural at all. And I'm very, very grateful for modern medicine and like what they were able to do and figure out and determine. But I was like, I also was like very grateful for this doula because she was a prior RN, and like I could talk to her and ask her too, like, okay, what does this mean? Like, should we like, what are our options?
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes back around later, which is great too. But so we were like, well, I kind of want to know if it's an infection or not. And like to me, like that would give me a better like sound mind. In retrospect, I would never ever ever do it again. It
Mm.
was like the most painful thing out of everything. Like and the scariest too, because like they're literally you're watching them with a ultrasound like on there stick its massive needle through your tummy into like the sac to pull fluid out.
Do they numb you at
They
all? Or
numbed, yeah, and like that was like, which I was like, okay, it wasn't that bad, but it was like the following week, like I could barely like sit up.
wow.
Like it was just because of like the puncture through like all of the like the levels, I guess, tissues and stuff, and like
Mm-hmm.
the muscle itself. I was like, oh my god, like I was able to like I wasn't that big, so I was able to still kind of like do a crunch and like feel my at, but like it hurt so bad for like the week after. I was like, I never ever do that again. So it came back negative. They were able to do the cerclage on that Tuesday, which basically like sewed my cervix up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, okay, like go home. And then in like 3 weeks, which happened to be like the 1st of January, they're like, well, we won't see anybody on the 1st, so we'll see you on the 3rd. I was
Okay.
like, all right, so 3 weeks and some change was my next follow-up appointment. And they're like, if anything changes, don't worry about it. Or call us and like, come in like you feel like anything like, but this will be your appointment, you should be fine until then. I'm like, okay. They're like, small percentage, like anything will happen. Or had no bleeding whatsoever, was fine, like hadn't even like bled like earlier on in the pregnancy, so like wasn't just like, okay. Was doing progesterone, um not well, yeah, I got the shots the second time around with Chappie. This was like a suppository type like. And
Did they recommend it, or why were you?
so progesterone is like a weird one that they're like, we don't know why it works, but it helps most women. There's no side effects to like any issues with the pregnancy baby women. It's just like, we don't know why it works though. It's like one of those like weird, like it's just an extra shot of progesterone like in your body to help. And I'm like, okay, maybe we should do some testing on this. I
Mm.
don't know. Like, yeah, it's taboo to test on pregnant women, but maybe we should start asking women if that's okay. Like we test, like just do blood work or something during
Mm.
pregnancies to like figure out like, why does this help? Why is this working? Why is it not working? Why does it work for some women? Is it like
And when you say
another
works, like
hormone?
what is just like
Um,
regulating?
yeah, like regulating the pregnancy.
Okay. So
Um,
did you start taking that?
I think they started giving me that right after I went on like modified bed rest. I can't really remember if it was then or if it was around the cerclage time frame.
So we're still sitting around like 20, 23 weeks.
Yeah, so at this point we're like 23 and 22 and like a half, I think was what it was, like 22, I think was when I went in. It was like, yeah, somewhere around 22, 23. So then New Year's Eve, which was my birthday, I was like laying on the couch and I vividly remember her just like she was always kind of like moving around. I could feel her, but I was like laying on the couch and just being all fat and pregnant. And I was like, man, she's moving around a lot right now. And like Jace was like sitting over there and I'm just like, I feel like she's like kicking herself out of me though.
Oh, God.
Like it just felt so low. And her, like, I could just was like, I feel like I could just be like, yep, that's her. I was like, this is weird. But I didn't have like any other issues that I was just like, it just feels really low.
There's no reference
And
because your
she's
first
moving
one.
around. And I was just like, all right. And so then I went to the bathroom and I had like a pinprick of blood. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. Because like I hadn't bled even after the cerclage. And I was like, and then with the progesterone, it was also like there was some like discharge with it.
Mm-hmm.
But this was like a weird discharge. Like it was almost like clumpy. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird too. Like that's not, hasn't been normal like that. So then I woke up, or we went out that night because it was also our other friend's birthday was on January 1st, and she was doing a big party at Hot Tuna. And so I was like, well, if I could just like get dressed up and just go sit, I'm like just literally walking from the car into the restaurant and sit. Like it's still like I'm not going to be up dancing around or anything. I just want to go say hi to everybody and like get the hell out of the house.
Yeah.
So I got dressed up. Like we went into the restaurant. I think we stayed for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Said hi to everybody. Went home. I was like, okay, cool.
I made it out.
Yeah, I was like, woohoo. Woke up the next morning and it was like another little bit more pinprick of blood, more than just there was the night before. And I was like, oh, just this feels weird. And so I came out and I told Jason, and I was like, I just feel like there's something off and this isn't right. So I called the triage and they were like, yeah, I mean, like your appointment's on the 3rd. Do you think you could like wait? And I was like, I would feel better if somebody could check me out. Like, I just feel like this is not right. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. So they're like, come on in, like we can see you.
Mm-hmm.
Just go to the triage area. And I was like, okay, labor triage. And I was like, all right, this is down at Portsmouth. So of course, like all of like I always had horror stories of everything that happened down there and like
Because it was medical. Because you had to
Navy
do
medical.
okay.
Yeah, I couldn't go anywhere outside of Navy medicine. So I came out and I was like, Jace, I was like, pack our bags. I was like, I don't know why. I just have this feeling. It doesn't feel right. I was like, and they said that I can come in and get checked out. And so we were, all right. So he's like making breakfast and he's like, screw this. So I was like, let's go. So we grabbed bags, went down, and they bring the doc like nurse in. She's like, oh, okay. And then she leaves. And then like 3 doctors come in and we're like, can we ask what's going on? And they were like, well, you've dilated again and the bag's coming out, but the cerclage is still in place. And I was like, how is that possible? Because it's basically like a balloon like hole. Like you're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, she's okay. And like, she seems like her heart rate isn't like crazy or anything. It was just like, we can't like push it back because we could puncture it. And like, it's the bag that she is in. So it was like, but the cerclage hasn't failed. So it's like, we can't really do anything until like kind of like it maybe goes back in by itself. And we're like, well, how does that happen? They're like, well, we put you in Trendelenburg. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And they're like, basically you lay in a bed like this with your head above your feet or below your feet. And I was like, that doesn't sound like fun. They're like, yep. And it's either going to be you or the baby's going to be here for a long period of time. So like you decide. And we're just like, well, I would rather me be here than her.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, yeah, you're not leaving until either the baby's born or I was like, great.
Like the
So
feeling.
that was January 1st. I was like, sweet. So like his parents came in, my parents came in, and just was in the hospital for 5 more days.
Upside down?
Pretty much. Every once in a while they'd like allow me to like lay flat. But eventually it started like going back in, and they were like, okay, you know, like everything's looking good. And my parents, well, the parents finally convinced Jason, like, go home because he was staying at the hospital with me.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, just go home, like, let, you know, my mom stay with her over one night and like get sleep in your own bed. And this was like the massive snowstorm. It doesn't snow and like ice storm of like
Mm-hmm.
2014. It was like negative degrees here. It was crazy. And I was like, well, thank God I'm not outside.
Thinking of the
It's like,
positive.
whew. It was like it too cold. It was totally so cold, so cold. Um, and so then that night he went home. My mom stayed. The nurse came in and was like, "Hey, it was like, I think everything's like looking pretty good. Like, we'll let you get up and go to the bathroom." We're like, I was like, "Sweet, get out
Oh,
of
like
the
they weren't
bed."
even letting you out of the.
No, it's like I don't think I got out of. I think I may have like stood up once in like those like 3 or 4 days. Like I didn't. It was just like flat or up.
What did you do to pass the time?
Read books, watched TV, slept, tried to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It
Any
was
pain?
I look back now and like I was having like a little bit of back pain, which I think was more labor pains, but I just had no idea because I had never been pregnant before. And I was like, oh, it's just because I'm laying flat on my back and I can't like move,
Mm-hmm.
which could be that too. Like, but I look back and I was like, I feel like it was probably more like lower back labor pain,
Mm-hmm.
and I just had no idea. Um, and so he slept the night or spent the night at home. It was like a Saturday night. And then Sunday morning, I like woke up and I was like, yeah, I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7. It's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I was like, waddle into the bathroom, sit down, pee. And I'm like, all right, cool. Grab some toilet paper or wipe. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm holding her head. And I was like, mom. I was like, mom. Pulling a little like cord. I was like, go out and get whoever you see in the hallway and tell the nurse or somebody or to come in here. And she was like, oh, what? And I was like, just go get somebody. And this poor male nurse comes in and he was like, okay. He's like, I'm so sorry. And he was like, we can get you back to the bed. I think we can get you back to the bed. He's like, you care? And I was like, put your hand wherever. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I'm not having this child on the toilet. And so we like waddled back to the bed. I laid down and then like I like told my mom, I was like, call Jason, just tell him to get here. I was like, don't tell him anything else, just tell him to get here.
Oh my
I
God.
could hear her on the phone, the baby's coming, the baby's
Oh
coming. And I
God.
was like, that is not what I wanted you to say, because now he's just going to flip his lid.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, all right. So the nurse, doctors, everybody came in and they were like, well, nope, it's not the head, it's just the bag. For some reason, like you've got this super strong amniotic bag. She's actually okay, like, but now like the bag and like this cerclage was still in place too. And I was like, okay, well, what does this mean? They're like, you have to have her today. Like we can't like risk trying to push it back and it's too far like we're like out that like we think we could even like get in to like snip the cerclage, because if we do that, like it could just cause everything to happen. So they're like the best like case scenario right now is just to have an emergency C-section. And I was like, great. So she was 25 in like 4 days. Yeah. So then like there is a lot of like blackout time from after that. Like I have like vivid flashes of like stuff that like happened, and but like even then like that those like next couple of days, like remember like going down to like see her and stuff. They allowed me to stay. So typically like you get like 2 days post
Mm-hmm.
C-section, but they were able to like finagle it. So I think I had like 4.5 days where I could stay
Which isn't
at the
nearly
hospital. Yeah.
long enough.
Yeah.
4 days.
But I could come back like whenever I wanted to. It was just like I couldn't be there like all day.
Right.
But I basically was there all day anyways after that. Like I would show up at 8 and not leave until like 8.
Mm-hmm.
So she was 95 days in the NICU. So we were there for a little over 100, 101
Now, when
total.
she was born, did they, I mean, was there anything noticeable where they were like, these are the things that are going on, or was it just she was just
It
very
was,
tiny, like a healthy, tiny?
yeah, I mean, like she was, I mean, perfectly formed. I remember some of like the little, like, the nipples aren't formed yet at that age.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, is she gonna, like, it was just like flat chest. And I was like, is she gonna have nipples? I remember asking like the nurse, I was like, she was like, yeah, they'll eventually, like, it's not part of the growth yet. Like her
Mm-hmm.
eyes were still sealed shut. Like I think she opened up her one eye, it was like a day or two later, but it was just like a little slit. And then it was like maybe 3 or 4 days where she finally like opened her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's super cool, but weird at the same time. Like you're literally like watching your child grow,
Yeah.
like how they would in the womb.
How much did she weigh when she came out?
1 pound, 12 ounces. So yeah, less than 2 pounds.
I remember looking on your Facebook and there's a photo, I think maybe Jason's ring.
Yeah, his wedding ring where she's holding onto it like
Yeah.
full fist. Yeah. That was like crazy because like you take like I was taking pictures and I was sending them to like our family and stuff, but like she looks just like a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And but no, like it's hard to like conceptualize in a photo like how tiny she was. So it wasn't until like we'd sent that photo that people were like, oh shit, like she's literally like even like the one where he's in her hands, like he like when they would do like diaper changes or like bed changes and stuff, like you could hold her and like she was like that. And so you're just like, oh, I didn't, like you can't, like it's hard to visualize. And then
Yeah.
like I took a Sharpie too and like put a Sharpie. It's like, yeah, I was literally like 13 inches, but like her like balled up, she was about the size of a Sharpie.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you, after the C-section, were you okay? Did you have any complications after the C-section or with?
Yeah, no, I didn't have any issues. Really, no. Yeah.
So then after you got discharged, how long? Because like, so then at that point, your paternity leave started through the military.
I was very, 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 very lucky. And the command I was at like worked with me. And they allowed me to basically just be TAD to the hospital when I was on like in my emergency um, C-section time frame, and then
Mm-hmm.
post. Um, they basically just TAD'd me to the hospital, and so I would call them, let them know it was good, let them know how she was doing, and if I needed anything, I would go in. I don't know if legally like they were allowed to do that, but that's why it's like I owed everything to them because then they allowed me to save my maternity leave for like when she got out.
Oh well.
Because I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, or if she like, because at that point too, is like we didn't know if she's gonna come home with like an oxygen tank or a G tube or, have other medical things that we need to. And she did have a crap ton of like therapy. It's like we immediately put her in like all of like the PTOT therapies after
Like
with
after
her
she gets out,
after she got
or
out. Yeah,
do they do any of that like while they're in
we
the
do a
house?
little
Like,
bit, but mostly it's just get them to a point where they can basically live on their own.
mm-hmm.
And then there was like certain like she was supposed to be 5 pounds. They had told me initially like before that they would like even do the car seat tests, but she was about like 4.5 pounds and they started doing it and they were like, she's pretty much fine, like she's good to go. And she didn't come home with any O2. She didn't have any feeding things, like, but having to go back and like do like her rechecks and like weight tests and stuff like that to make sure she was still gaining weight. um she had a little like couple holes in the heart which were typical of like normally they get sealed up later on in like pregnancy, but
Mm-hmm.
because she was born so early it just took a little bit longer, so we had to like follow up with a cardiologist for first 2 3 years, maybe not even 5. um she had some issues with like her retinas forming too, so we had to follow up with her ophthalmologist for a couple of years too, just to make sure everything kind of stabilized and like
Mm-hmm.
stayed normal growth. Um, that was pretty much it. And a nutritionist.
Now, were you able to, did you try to breastfeed while you were in
I
there?
tried and I really wanted to. I had terrible advice. Like the lactation consultant there was not good and I didn't know any better. And um like pushing her to do it too was also like stressing her out a little bit.
So they let you try to breastfeed while she was
Yeah.
in the NICU?
Yeah. So I started pumping immediately and was able to produce milk. I was afraid I wouldn't, so I started taking like some supplements too, which probably helped. Um, I would say like I didn't produce as much with Chappie, but um I exclude so then I just was like, screw this, like I'm not gonna like stress her out with this. And like she was used to taking a bottle at the NICU anyways, so I was like, I might as well just stay with it and make it
Mm-hmm.
easy. So I just exclusively pumped for 2 years.
That's tough. I'm at 9 months and I'm like, oh God, the thought of doing two
Yeah.
years, you need an award. You need an
Eh,
award.
I mean, I was the crazy person who was like driving to work while pumping, and I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. It was like I would just take like a cloth and throw it over the top of me. I would like hook myself up before I got there, and then if it stopped. But like when I got, I just like turn it off, and then I would just wait till I got there, and then I would take it off, and, like go in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was also like, I would say, let's say like neurotically, like I knew that that was something that I could give her because I had the guilt of it being my fault
Mm-hmm.
for like the longest time too. And at that point, like I was like, this is what I can do for her kind of thing. And even still, like it wasn't even just her. Like I ended up donating so much to a couple of moms who like babies had to have surgery or like they had like complications and had like couldn't produce, and so they needed it for their babies. And
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up there was a couple of like Facebook groups and stuff where you could donate to other moms,
That's amazing.
because at that point like the milk bank was kind of a weird thing. And I'm like, I don't understand why there's such a stigma behind it. But I was like, there's been wet nurses since the beginning of time.
You're like, I mean, I'm sure you have like a deep freezer that
I
like was
hadn't, yeah, I know.
already.
I heard about your story and I was like, oh, God, I would
Yeah, yeah. So for the listeners, I don't think I've aired that one yet, but Trip decided to 4-year-old, almost 4-year-old, he was 3 when he did it.
Yeah.
We'll blame it on that, right? He unplugged probably about 500 ounces of breast milk that now we are going through and it's just baths. So we've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
doing, baths with
It's good
old,
for pink eye.
yeah.
Yeah, any eczema.
I'm like, here, we're not going to throw this away.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to, but yeah, 400 ounces. I was like, oh, ah. But,
Yeah, we ended up having, we had like 2 deep freezers
but it's such like
full.
this, like, you're just like, you're so proud. Like, once
Yeah.
it's like, that's my stash. Like, I don't know how many times, like, before we're going to bed, I'd be like, all right, Rob, we got to get our milk bricks. Like, let's get them together. So we're just like over there writing, doing milk bricks. And I'm like, look
Yeah.
at this. Or like, you come out with like 4 ounces. You're like, look what I made.
Yeah.
Look what I did. And then all of a sudden, like, still, sometimes it's like 9 months later, I'm like, look at
Yeah.
this. Oh my God, no, it's going down. Like, what? It's like, you're
Yeah.
so hyper. Like, I know I was like hyper fixated on like,
Yeah.
well, why is it dropping? Why is it
Yeah.
here? Like, I need 5 body armor stat. Like,
Yeah.
did you notice any like drop or were you pretty
Yeah,
like,
there was a lot of up and downs depending on, and like, you go through the whole I need to lose weight, I need to figure out like how to feel good again and sleep deprivation. And so that was an interesting point. It was like not having her at home when we would come home. So like, for the first 3 months, like she was in the NICU. And so
mm,
there was no baby at home. So that was also a weird thing too, is like not being able to be around her during that time frame and like the middle of the night pumps. And then it was finally like my nurse was like, just you don't need to pump in the middle of the night. Like, you can like pump in the morning when you wake up and pump before you go to bed and you can sleep, which is
Mhm.
what you need to do. And I was like, yeah, but she's like, your body will re-regulate itself. And she's like, and by the time that she comes home, she's not going to be needing to eat in the middle of the night. So
Yeah.
you don't need to put yourself through that. I was like, oh, okay. That's probably a good idea. And so then I finally kind of like figured that out, and it was like not getting up in the middle of the night to pump because I didn't need to.
Mhm.
She wasn't there. And then I was like, oh, okay, like I can get a little bit of sleep. But I was still on like edge of like, is she gonna call? Is somebody gonna call? Because like they would call anytime something would happen.
Yeah.
Thankfully, like we never got a call. Yeah, all the bad times was like happened when we were there. So
How do you
um,
feel like, I mean, I can't imagine, right, going
yeah,
through that and coming home and it's like what you imagined was like,
yeah,
you go through
yeah,
all this, you come home, baby comes home. Do
yeah.
you feel like you had like extra support or you reached out for resources or was it kind of like you were just grinding it
Yeah,
because you were at the hospital all day? Like how did you take care of yourself during that time?
our families, like both of our families were great, like and amazing. Like they both were out of state, but like they came in during like the time when I was initially in the hospital, and then they came back, and respected like our time, like bringing her back and stuff. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, they were really good on that aspect of it. And then like it being weird of like not having her to take care of like at home or anything like that, like and the benefit of like my work being like you can just go, like it literally just became my job. Like I would get up in the morning, make breakfast, go down to the hospital and sit at the hospital all day,
Mhm.
listen to the doctors, be there for rotations, figure out what else I needed to go on, advocate for some of the other parents that were there because they were like I'd overhear stuff of like a chief, like there was one young girl who was like at the bed next to us, and their baby had some serious issues, and they were bringing a specialist in, and like I overheard her talking about like how her chief wouldn't let her husband come to the doctor's appointment because he needed to be there for a fire drill. And I'm like, dude, this is an E3, like he doesn't need to be there. I'm like,
A fire drill?
give me your chief's number, I will call him and talk to him because like that's ridiculous. Like he needs to be here to hear what this special, like they're literally bringing, the hospital's bringing a specialist in for your child, like he
Mhm.
needs to be here for that. um
Did you ever see a result of that? Like if
yeah, so they were finally like, and the nurses and the doctors also like jumped into and was like, no, 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 wait, like this is he's not trying to just get out of the fire drill or whatever, like he does
Mhm.
not need to be like, I'm like, he does not
Good for you for like hearing that
need.
and like because I'm sure she was just lost in
Oh yeah, and like just again, like I don't know if I could have done this when I was younger, in my 20s versus in my 30s, like having the mental capacity to do that. But slowly going through like this became like a new routine for me, and then like Jason went back to work. So it was just it took a lot of work. And then like the clinical psychologists there, like the therapists and stuff, like I think you talked about it on like maybe
the depression
the other. It
scale.
was like, yeah, it was like filling out this like piece of paper, and it was like, how do you feel? And I'm like, not good. And so then like he comes over, and it's like an open bay, because each hospital is different too, by the way. Like NICUs, like some of them, like you have your own little rooms,
Mm,
and like that's like your room, and the baby's in there all the time. Portsmouth, it's open. So there's like, I think 18 beds in there. And you basically just have like curtains that come around you if there's something like serious going on, or like there's like a doctor coming in to like talk to you about something. So it's like
mhm.
you can literally hear everything.
Right.
And he comes over and he's like, I heard you marked that you weren't feeling good on your paper. And I was like, nope, I'm fine. Nope, I'm good.
Because that was definitely the place you wanted to talk
I
about
was
it.
like, this is the worst. Yeah, I was like, no. And I'm like, nope, I'm good. He's like, oh, okay.
I feel like there has to be some spatial awareness of like
I
you're
just
about to talk about like I
I don't know.
literally
Some of them I think they're just so
numb.
yeah, and they're just like, this is just my job. Like I just gotta go talk to people, and if they don't want to talk to me, then oh well.
It's like you were in such a vulnerable space
Yeah,
in general, regardless, like
yeah,
whether you were in a good headspace or not. Like
yeah,
that where you were was like not ideal to talk about anything. And it's like
yeah.
what it's
That
just like it makes me laugh. Like even before this episode, so I had to get a mammogram and an ultrasound this morning.
fun.
Causes from breastfeeding. So here's me still dealing with like breastfeeding stuff. And I'm sitting in the waiting room, and the lady was like, "You forgot to put your height and weight down. What's your height and weight?" And luckily, like, I don't care.
Yeah,
But like, I'm imagining someone who
yeah.
like doesn't
Who
want to
does
say,
and
like,
is
sorry.
self-conscious about it? Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I know my height and weight. But like, she's yelling in the waiting room. I'm just like, what is wrong with people?
Yeah. I think there's just a lack of self-awareness, really.
So, do you think if you were approached in a different setting and maybe you were in like a private room or they pulled you aside and said, "Hey, we want to be able to
Yeah,
talk," you think you would
yeah,
have?
absolutely. Because like I knew that I wasn't feeling good, and like I just the trauma of thinking about just having my child on the toilet was like I was still processing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hormonal fluctuations and everything that goes on with that, like leaving my child in the hands of somebody else as well. Like I'm like I cried for days, literally like walking out of the hospital. I still like to this day like have the vision of like going down like the tunnel
Mm-hmm.
crying because I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
Jason was just holding me like as we go to the car, and I was like, fuck, like I don't want to do this. Like why am I having to do this? Now looking back at it, like it's survivable and like it's doable and it sucks. And it did suck. My reaction to it was totally normal, and I think that like goes with anybody. Um the therapy came a little bit in an odd place because I never really like talk to people about things. Like my family was just you don't talk about like sensitive stuff. It was kind of just like not hid it, but like you just kept it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that happened, one of my good friends was like, "Hey, like you should just create a Facebook page, and so that you can just instead of trying to like update everybody on it and dealing with like different questions from everybody, you can just send people there, and like people who want to follow you can like just go and like look at that, and then like maybe send you like a text or something. That way you're not like sitting on your phone. Because even back like this wasn't that long ago, it was like 11 years ago, but sending text messages was still not like something all of the time. Like you
Mm-hmm.
have like there was no group messages. It was just like single
Right.
messages and
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Now you got like 50
Um,
people in the group.
yeah, and so she was just like, just do the Facebook page, and then that way it'll be a little bit easier, maybe a little cathartic for you to like write things down and stuff like that. I was like, I don't know, I just want to share. Like that's weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like share stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know why. And then I ended up starting doing it, and I was like, oh, I was like, this, okay, yeah, I can see like this is, sharing like the highlights and stuff like that was
Mm-hmm.
like helpful. Um, and then
Was it just for like family and friends that you added to the page, or was it kind of like an
yeah, and then it
open?
kind of it went open, and then I ended up I think I closed it off to like just people that I knew because it started getting a little weird. And that's a whole other story I can go into, um but it did help because like there was several times throughout the last couple of years where like somebody I went to college with or somebody I went to high school with had like a cousin or sister who had a premature baby, and they're like, hey, would you mind talking to them about like your experiences, because like it is you're like one of few who go through this, and
Mm-hmm.
having a child that small at that time frame, like you feel like you're the only person who knows. It's like at that time, like I didn't know anybody else who had a premature baby.
Yeah.
Nobody, like zero. And my nurse put me in contact with another family who we still talk with, who had two sets of premature children. One was twins that ended up not making it, but like her next set of twins made it, and they were also born premature. But I was able to like talk to her about like some of the feelings and like what we were going through, and like how do I approach like the doctor or nurses who were doing this and that, like sort of thing that I don't like or don't understand. And
Now, did she just notice that like if you voiced that you didn't know anyone, was she like, hey, here's a resource, or I know, like, how did they make
no,
that
they just
connection?
know, like
Yeah.
they're little like angels on earth, and like those women and the doctors, the men doctor, like male doctors, like I don't think there was any male nurses that we had, or all female. They just know, they've been, and most of them that we had have been doing it for a long time too, like probably over 10 years or so. They just know,
Yeah.
like they're
Were they
it's
local? The family that they did?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And she was like, her husband was in the military, like she was not herself, but like um
I feel like
most
that
of
to
them
be
it's just
expected,
like
right? Like, how could you be yourself? Is that what you meant?
um
Like during that time she was, oh, or you meant like physically she was like by herself?
what do you mean?
I think I misheard you.
Okay.
um, because connecting. So I think because what I was trying to figure out too is like, so they know they're getting that feeling. Like, do they have to get like, right? So talk to the other family, say, hey, like I identified like another
Yeah,
family, like
I
you
mean,
know
I
what I
think it's
mean?
just,
Like,
yeah, I think she just was like, because she was one of our nurses, and then she was also a nurse for
mm,
these parents, and
okay,
so she was like, she had a relationship with them, and she was like, and like going through it, like I think you just know it's like talking about it to other people and like being able to connect to somebody else who has been through it
yeah,
as well. Kind of like what you're doing with this is like connecting people and mothers who like gone through different situations, and she's just like, hey, I think she'll talk to you about it. So
yeah.
um
I think it's therapeutic to be
just
able to,
just having somebody who has been through it.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that like you can't talk to anybody who hasn't. There's a the saying that goes is like, so knowing somebody who's gone through it or like been through it, like I know what it is, like I know what it feels like.
yeah,
So, same as like losing a loved one or something, like it's like
hmm,
going through that's a little different than like not having gone through it. Like you still empathize,
yeah. I think it's a different
but
connection.
you're like, oh, I get it. I think there's a little like trust level too of like you also know, so I can trust you with um how I'm feeling and not maybe potentially feeling judged
Hmm.
for feeling a certain way.
Yeah,
It changed my perspective on a whole hell of a thing. Like everything,
like going to,
everything.
yeah. What
Just
do you think
going
it?
through that. Like I would not wish it on anybody. I would not wish to go through it ever again. But I'm grateful that we did because it changed. Like I'm definitely a different person because of all of it.
What do you think your biggest takeaway from that? Like, what do you feel like you carry with you?
There's a lot of little like things of like having control. Like I always thought like, oh, I control whatever I'm doing. I was like, nope, like absolutely none. Like I had absolutely zero control over how that birthing story went
Hmm.
at all. I thought I had control, and then I didn't, and then I thought I had control again, and then I didn't, and it just happened. And so you just kind of have to go with it. Like things are going to happen whether you expect them or not. And like I was also a super preparer, like I need to plan for everything. I'm gonna plan,
Hmm.
like I have a plan A, B, and C, and there's probably a D back there too.
I can feel that.
And
Yeah.
we were on like plan M by the time like all of that happened. And so I being able to let go of that control doesn't mean that I have no control.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just allowing myself to be prepared for whatever is going to happen. And I'm okay with what is going to happen because I don't have that control. Like it's just going to be,
Mm-hmm.
which is a weird thought and a weird, like it took me a long time to kind of understand. And so I'm a lot more okay with just going with it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I can have a plan, but it's okay if it doesn't happen because we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Do you feel like
Everything.
that gives you more of kind of like a go with the flow, or do you still try to like plan
I mean, I
a little?
still like will plan stuff, but I definitely am much more easy with going with the flow. Like, well, I don't care. Like, let's go with it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
would I like something, to go, a certain way? Yeah, but I'm okay if it doesn't. Like,
Yeah.
it'll be all right. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like everything's figure outable. Everything is figure outable.
I like that. And so
Um,
now Logan is a healthy 11
yep.
year old. I'd say little, but she's like,
She's getting bigger. Oh
I
my gosh, she's going through puberty. She told me the other day, she's like, Mom, my chest hurts. And I was like, did you do she does jujitsu too? I was like, did you maybe pull a muscle or did you do something? She was like, no. And I felt stressed. I was like, oh, I was like, you're gonna be sore for a little bit, bug. Growing her little boobies. I was like, okay. I was like, we're here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Then of course I'm Googling. I was like, when is typical puberty? Because she is delayed developmentally. But 11's pretty typical. So I was like, okay. I was
Mhm.
like,
The middle
it's
school
a good
years.
sign. Because yeah, she lost, God, I don't even remember now. She's still losing teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was 2 years delayed
For teeth.
for teeth. So that was another weird, I've been to every specialist on earth. So as her being so tiny, she was always on the 0 percentile. Everybody was like, ah, and I was like, but her primary doctor was like, she's just on the 0 percentile. There is a zero for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, she's growing at her a normal growth rate. It's just she is in the 0 percentile. And then I think it was around 9, she jumped to the 4th percentile. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. We figured something out. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it was, but food wise, um, and then, but we were just I just want to make sure we're not missing anything, maybe genetically, or that we can help her with,
Yeah.
because she does have an autism diagnosis and ADHD, but high functioning. I don't, yeah, she thinks differently than most people. I'm not sure if it's still autism or if it's just she just thinks differently. But the autism diagnosis was able to get us different therapies so that we could go through some we went through a couple phases of behavioral stuff where it was retrograde. I think it was just I don't know, activities going on and stuff like that that we were doing. And but more so is giving me the tools to be able to deal, help her
Yeah.
figure out her emotional regulations and that sort of thing. There's some dyslexia too. But to get those official diagnoses, sometimes open those doors, sometimes they don't. We didn't get the official dyslexia diagnosis, but we were still able to get the OT and PT that helped with her handwriting and reading.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to pick and choose with that sort of things. But going back to the endocrinologist, we were just what's we want to make sure we're not missing anything. And he was like, no, her everything looks great. This is her growth curve. It just, and her losing teeth, which is, I didn't know this, but her losing teeth later on just means that her developmentally hitting puberty would be a little bit later than most of the girls in her class. And
Interesting.
so I was like, oh, it's okay. He's like, it's there's nothing wrong with that. It just means when they will start going through puberty is essentially that time frame starts when they start losing their teeth. And
I
I was
didn't
like,
realize there was that
oh.
connection.
I had no idea either until I saw him, because I was like, what's the deal? And he's like, no. He's like all of her teeth are like her dentist is like all of her teeth are there. It's just
Taking a
whenever
little
they
time to push
decide,
it.
yeah, whenever they decide to like come down, I was like, okay. But it was like hormonally everything's good, and they were like, yeah, everything looks great. So I was like, all right.
Good deal. All right. So
So yeah,
what's the going rate for the tooth fairy? Is that still?
I almost blew it. She's still, yeah, she still believes in the Tooth Fairy and like Santa and the Easter Bunny and all that. And the other day, last week, she lost a tooth, and it was just like a lot of stuff going on. Jason was out of town, and like she pulled it out herself and put it under the pillow, and I like tucked her into bed, and I was like, okay, I gotta set my alarm, get up. And at like 6 o'clock, I was like, oh shit. I was like, I forgot. I was like, and of course, like, okay, so if you can do this,
Are these some tricks?
so they have their own cash. I will go in and take $1 from them and then put it underneath their pillow.
I don't hate
Because
it.
who carries dollars around anymore? Not me. The kids have a ton of dollars. They don't know how many dollars they have. So if they do know, don't do that. If they don't, it's an easy way to get your dollar from the Tooth Fairy. And then, so of course, I did not have the time to go into her bank and take one. So then I was like going through my purse, and I was like, I only have a $5 bill. I was like, all right, it's a molar. Maybe like she'll like, I'm like, I don't even have like quarter, like trying to find quarters or something. And I was like, nope. I was like, all right, $5. All right. And so I go in, I snuck in through her bedroom and through the bathroom. And the door was open because usually like she'll keep that open and I can sneak through Chappie's room, but Chappie was sleeping with me, so he wouldn't wake up if a tornado came through. But I go in and I can see like she's kind of like laying on her bed, and she usually has like she'll sleep in like a little sleep mask.
Oh, cute.
And it's like kind of like pulled up here. So I was like, okay. So I was like, maybe I can make it. And so I like got next to her bed, and I was like sticking my hand underneath her pillow. And it was like acting like going real slow. And then she just like rolls over and is like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. And then she looks and she was like, I forget what she said. Something was, she was like, are you the Tooth Fairy? And I was like, no. And I was like, the Tooth Fairy's like, she missed the time frame. And so I was just checking, and she was like, I can't believe the Tooth Fairy missed me. And I was like, yeah. I was like, man, I was like, I don't know what happened. And then she just like talked herself out of it and was like, oh no, like the Tooth Fairy just missed me. And I was like, yeah.
And you holding this
And
$5 bill in your hand?
yeah, I was like, she sent me a message and I was just trying to make up for it. And she was like, oh, well, that kind of stinks. And I was like, yeah.
So then did she get it later that night? Did
So
the
that
tooth fairy come
night,
later?
yeah. So then I went back that night. It set an alarm this time. Went back at like midnight. Actually, it was like 11 or so because I knew she would be asleep by then. But I wrote a teeny tiny little note and was like, I'm so sorry I missed you. There were so many children who lost teeth yesterday. And I left $1 this time.
Oh, she doesn't even know she got demoted.
Nope. I was like, I even told her, I was like, you take the $5. I was like, or the Tooth Fairy could come tomorrow. And she's like, I'm not taking that. And I was like, okay.
Oh, all right. Oh my God,
But I was
that is
like,
hilarious.
I thought I was busted. And I was like, man, we're having this conversation now. And I was like, oh, or you could just talk yourself.
Yeah, perfect. All right.
I was like, all right, we're good. We're good. I was like, so yep, Easter Bunny is still happening now. And
That's amazing.
yeah.
Well, she's definitely your little miracle baby.
Yeah. She's something.
I know. Well, Jess, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that story of Logan and your journey, and Gunnar likes to just jump in too. So
My bud.
I know. Well, until next time, keep hustling, keep healing, and cheers.
Cheers.
Come hang out with me on Instagram at Hustle and Healing Podcast for more real talk, laughs, and support. You can also catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So be sure to subscribe, follow, and leave a review if you're loving what you hear. And do me a favor, share this episode with a fellow mom who needs to hear it. Keep hustling, keep healing, and don't forget to reheat that coffee. Again, see you next time.